Veneto is one of Italy's most prosperous regions. Located in the northeast of the peninsula, it owes its fame to Venice, the unique floating city, its Dolomites, a UNESCO World Heritage Site with breathtaking peaks, and the iconic Aperol Spritz, the bright orange aperitif that has become a symbol of European leisure. Beauty is easy to find all around Veneto. What's harder to uncover are the invisible risks, the darker truths.
Around 350,000 people have been drinking water polluted by PFAS for at least 50 years.
You're listening to Dr. Vincenzo Cordiano in a video interview produced by Greenpeace in 2016. PFAS are man-made chemical substances that pose risks to human health. They're widely used in industry and found in many everyday consumer products. This is Mattia Massato, one of the inhabitants of the region.
We
try to avoid cooking with tap water, but the problem has also spread to food. The surface water used to irrigate fields is coming from the rivers, which are contaminated. Children go to kindergarten, and at the kindergarten, what do they eat? I have 2 children. One is 5 years old and the other is 3. And I'm quite worried about the problems they might face over the course of their lives.
possono avere durante l'arco della loro vita.
PFAS were discovered in the aquifers of southwest Veneto in 2013, thanks to a study commissioned by the Italian Ministry for the Environment and the Protection of Citizens, together with the National Research Council. Miteni, a chemical company located in the area, was identified as the main source of water pollution. The company, active since the mid-1960s, specialized in manufacturing PFAS and had been aware of the water contamination since the 1990s. In 2018, Miteni declared bankruptcy, and in 2021, a trial began. 15 people from the chemical company were indicted on several charges, including environmental pollution and willful disaster. On the other side, more than 300 civil parties joined the case. The trial concluded on the 26th of June of this year with a historic verdict. A total of 141 years in prison were handed down to 11 of the company's managers. Welcome to Euronews Tech Talks, the podcast that explores the digital, technological, and scientific landscape shaping Europe. I'm your host, James Thomas. If you're tuning in for the first time, thank you for your interest in our project. Our aim is to make complex topics both accessible and engaging, with insights from European experts, solid research, and input from our audience. If you're a regular listener of Euronews Tech Talks, we hope you had a great summer and it's nice to have you back. Today, we open the third season of our podcast with a deep dive into the world of PFAS. Don't be intimidated by the technical acronym. You'll get used to it over the next 3 episodes. Throughout this journey, we'll explore what PFAS are, their impact on our health, how they can be managed, and whether alternatives exist. So let's jump right in, starting with our Q&A episode in which we put your questions to a PFAS expert.
My name is Martin Scheringer, and I'm a chemist by training. I work at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, or ETH, in Zurich, in Switzerland, as a research scientist and group leader.
Before putting your questions to this expert, let's start from the basics. What are PFAS and what are their characteristics?
PFAS, the acronym stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl alkyl substances. And what this means is these chemicals are what we call organic chemicals that contain a lot of carbon. And in PFAS, the carbon carries fluorine. So there are many fluorine atoms connected to the carbon. And that is the essence of what constitutes a PFAS. They have unique properties. They are water repellent, they are grease and dirt repellent, they are not flammable, they are very stable, they are fire resistant. They are perfect as impregnation agents and as lubricants. They can be used as firefighting foams because they spread on a burning pool of, let's say, jet fuel and cover the fire on that pool. So many strong properties caused by the fluorine. The fluorine is essential for these properties, but then also the toxic properties or toxicity, and that's the biggest concern, the enormous stability, because the chemical bond between carbon and fluorine is so strong that it cannot be broken by processes in the environment. We need more energy than what's available in the environment to break that bond. And that is then the cause or the reason why they accumulate in the environment in a way forever. And that's also why they're called forever chemicals.
PFAS are a group of over 10,000 man-made chemicals. Thanks to their unique resistance properties, PFAS are widely used in everyday products such as pizza boxes, to-go coffee cups, outdoor clothing, and even some disposable and reusable pads. However, it's complicated to know for sure whether a product contains PFAS, as European Union manufacturers are only required to classify and label certain forever chemicals, but not all of them. Beyond their versatility, PFAS are also known for something else: their harmful consequences. In fact, many of the questions we received focused on the toxicity of these so-called forever chemicals.
Yes, they are toxic, or many of them are. Of course, there are also differences, but the ones that we find in people and in the environment, most often they are toxic. And they are toxic in a relatively unspecific way. There's not one single mechanism of something, a damage or disease that they would cause in the body, but they interfere with many processes in the body. And they cause a wide range of diseases or health impacts, starting from cancer, so as bad as cancer, and then also liver damage and kidney damage. They affect the thyroid gland. They lead to impair or decreased or affected lipid metabolism. They reduce immune response after vaccinations. They reduce the sperm count in men. They may cause stillbirth in women. So a wide range of different effects that can be caused by PFAS.
Given the large number of substances classified as PFAS, it's complicated to determine the specific health effects of each one. Despite this uncertainty, many studies have shown that PFAS exposure can lead to adverse health outcomes. In 2023, the World Health Organization classified 2 PFAS as carcinogenic and possibly carcinogenic to humans. These included PFOA and PFOS, both banned in the EU. In addition to cancer risks, studies have linked PFAS exposure to liver damage, weakened immune function in both adults and newborns, reduced fertility in men and women, and low birth weight. In relation to this, a Reddit user asked whether these health problems are mainly due to PFAS's chemical or physical interactions with the body.
You can say physical chemical, meaning it's correct to say that they are not chemically changed. So PFAS in the body don't change their chemical structure, but of course they still interact with mostly proteins. So they bind to the proteins, and in a way they are plastered over the proteins everywhere in the body. So there are receptors and storage proteins and signal or transport proteins and enzymes that catalyze reactions in the body, which are also proteins. And all these proteins are kind of modified by the PFAS sticking to them, and therefore their function is then changed or impaired or disturbed. So they are chemicals that go as molecules. They are distributed chemically in the body, but they do not undergo a chemical change in their structure. But they still interact massively with many elements of the body. So it's important to see that although they are chemically kind of inert or not reactive, they are still highly toxic. It's a bit like sand in the gearbox of a car. When you have sand in the gearbox, you destroy all the cogwheels and everything in a very unspecific way.
Still on the topic of PFAS toxicity, another Reddit user posed a less technical but equally sharp and provocative question. A shorter version of it will now be read by our podcast producer, Alice Carnavali.
Are PFAS actually that toxic? On the one hand, we're worried about the contamination of water flows. On the other hand, the tangible amount of PFAS can be found in consumer goods. Wouldn't we expect firefighters who use PFAS-containing extinguishing foam to show symptoms? And if they don't, why should people with 1,000-fold lower exposure to PFAS be concerned?
To start with, it's true that firefighters have higher levels or even high levels of PFAS in their blood because of the use of PFAS in firefighting foams. But then it's also the case that firefighters have higher incidence of cancer and of liver damage caused by PFAS. So it is the case that firefighters are a particularly exposed group of people. There's also exposure, an important exposure can happen via drinking water in areas where there has been a lot of firefighting foams have been used. Because there, then the soil and the water are contaminated by these firefighting foams, and only indirectly then, with the water, the PFAS come back to people. So there are areas near airports or military sites where people have high burdens of PFAS because of that contamination of the water.
In June 2025, an analysis conducted in the Brussels municipality of Uccle revealed PFAS contamination in the soil and groundwater around the Sickly factory site. Sickly, which went bankrupt in 2024, had previously manufactured fire safety equipment like foam fire extinguishers. Residents in the area have been advised to not use water from their wells and to avoid consuming fruit, vegetables, and eggs produced in their gardens. At the time of writing this script in mid-August, additional analyses are still underway and the results are not yet available. Our podcast producer visited the neighborhood where Elise, a local pharmacist, shared some questions with us.
À quel dosage ça peut être dangereux pour la santé, la concentration du PFAS?
She's asking at what concentration PFAS can be dangerous for human health.
This is concerning because what we have seen over the last 10, 20 or more years is more and more effects that may occur at lower and lower concentrations. So if we look at the drinking water levels of P4, a certain PFAS, the perfluorooctanoic acid, in the US, in different states, then we see a decrease by almost 40 million. So it's now 40 million lower than 20 years ago because we have learned so much about adverse effects from PFAS at low concentrations. The most concerning at a concentration that can be very low is, of course, carcinogenicity. P4 is now classified as a chemical that causes cancer in humans. And for cancer, there is no threshold concentration, and that's why even a small concentration of P4 may cause cancer in humans.
Essentially, what Martin Scheringer is saying is that safe levels of contamination are not fixed. They change, adapting to our understanding of PFAS. Let's take PFOA, the PFAS substance banned in the EU, which we were talking about earlier. In West Virginia, in the United States, guidelines on the safe level of PFOA drinking water contamination have changed dramatically over the years, decreasing by nearly 40 million picograms per litre. It's a challenging topic, and the scientific community hasn't reached a consensus on safe PFAS blood levels. Elise also shared a second question with us.
Comment est-ce qu'on détecte les PFAS dans l'eau, etc., de savoir le processus pour analyser ceci?
She wants to know more about the procedure for detecting PFAS in water, and would also like to add a similar question regarding the techniques used to analyze PFAS in blood. Here's Martin Scheringer, starting with his answer to the question related to blood.
this can now be done more or less as a routine measurement, at least for a set of 4 or even some more PFAS. So there's a set of 4 PFAS. This is P4, the perfluorooctanoic acid, PFOS, the perfluorooctane sulfonic acid, and then 2 more, the PFNA, the nonanoic acid, and PFHXS, the hexane sulfonic acid. These 4 are measured regularly in people. And there are now many laboratories that can do this on a routine basis. They take a blood sample and then they quantify the levels of these substances in the blood.
And now he's explaining how it works with water.
That is basically the same. We take a sample and then there are routine methods for the quantification of a wider range, even not just these 4. Typical measurements in water include 20 PFAS. These are 10 carboxylic acids from 4 to 13 carbons, and also 10 sulfonic acids, also from 4 to 13 carbons. And this is done on a routine basis by many commercial laboratories nowadays.
We know it's slightly technical. We've received many in-depth questions, and the chemical nature of the topic can make it a bit more complicated. But we're confident that, up to now, you've understood that forever chemicals are useful for industry but toxic to humans. They can cause adverse health effects, and even small amounts may be potentially harmful. Given the high-level risk associated with these substances, a Reddit user asked for more information about the techniques used to remove PFAS from the environment.
Yes, there are quite some methods that have been proposed or developed over the last 5 years and more even to destroy PFAS. I think that's the main point, is to destroy PFAS that are present in the often wastewater. And so the discussion is wastewater treatment and cleanup. And to some extent, people use adsorption, so activated carbon that would adsorb the PFAS, but the more effective process in the end is to use chemistry or chemical energy or physical energy to destroy the PFAS, so to break the carbon-fluorine bond. And there's a range of different techniques, at least 10 or more. They are good when we have the PFAS in a way in our hands. So when we have a wastewater that we can collect, then we can apply these techniques to that water and at least destroy a large amount or large fraction of the PFAS. Problem is we have to collect the wastewater. So that is only applicable to PFAS that we can still collect before they enter the environment. These methods do not work for PFAS that are present in lakes and rivers and highly diluted and are circulating in the environment. We could say, in a way, this is like the milk in the coffee that we cannot take back from the coffee. That is just where we have to accept that they are circulating, and then we have to try to find out where people are exposed and try to limit that exposure.
If the first step in tackling PFAS is understanding where people are being exposed to them, the Forever Pollution Project is a valuable resource. Launched in 2022, this cross-border journalistic investigation involved a team of 29 journalists from 12 countries. Over several months, they collected data on PFAS and created a comprehensive, accessible digital map of Europe. When you open it, the central west part of the continent is covered in blue and red spots. Blue indicates presumptive contamination, while red marks confirmed contamination. We don't want to scare you, but rather invite you to explore the map and read the articles and analysis produced by the professionals involved in the project to get a sense of the scale of the problem. We'll leave the link to the map in the episode description. And last but not least, a user on Instagram asked Martin Scheringer why there isn't much research on PFAS. A provocative question to which we'd like to add whether there's enough research on alternatives.
In the scientific literature, there are many, many studies. It has exploded over the last years. There has been an exponential increase in the number of studies dealing with PFAS, properties and uses and occurrence in the environment, in levels, in biota, lots of aspects, toxicity, of course. So this is really a large body of scientific literature. But of course, this is also then not easy to digest. You have to really do a lot of reading and have to interpret the studies and all that. So that there is a lot of information there, but it takes time and also some background knowledge to extract the key points from all that knowledge that has been generated and is still being generated. And on the second question regarding alternatives, yes, a lot of work is being done to find alternatives. And for many, many uses of PFAS, there are alternatives. In particular for uses in consumer products, so skin cream, cosmetics, ski bags, food packaging, many uses where people were directly exposed to the PFAS, even via their food. For that, there are alternatives that work as well as the PFAS in these uses. And that is also now changing. So the market is changing. There are some brands, also, for example, for outdoor clothing, who directly even advertise that their products are PFAS-free. So there's a lot of change happening. It is more difficult in many industrial uses because the conditions could be very demanding. It could be very hot, aggressive chemicals, very demanding conditions where it is not so easy to find materials that can do the same, offer the same function, but are not PFAS. But also there, a lot of progress is made. Also, importantly, in many components of the energy transition, so in batteries, in electrolyzers, in heat pumps, in fuel cells, there are versions that work without PFAS.
That's all for today's episode of the podcast. Thanks to everyone who shared a question to help make this episode possible. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find our contact email in the episode description. Starting this season, Euronews Tech Talks will also be available on the Euronews YouTube channel. As always, we'll be back in 2 weeks, this time hearing directly from people whose lives have been impacted by PFAS in Zwijndrecht, a municipality located near Antwerp, Belgium. I'm your host, James Thomas. This series was created by Marta Rodriguez Martinez. This episode was written and produced by Alice Carnavali. The theme music is by Leo Lebrun. Sound editing and sound mixing is by Joanne Breton. Our editor-in-chief is Nia Samadizada. Thanks to Alessio Delana for dubbing Mattia Massato. If you aren't already, you can listen to this series on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider leaving us a positive review and, of course, sharing it. Thanks for listening.